Hey, everybody. Welcome to the program. Super glad you joined us today. I'm Kathy Holmes. I'm happy to be your host on Act 3 today. In the Zoom booth, I have Kix Citton, and she is with Nanaimo Brain Injury Society. She's a regular to the program. It's been a while since I've seen her. Hey,
It's
Kix,
so great
how are
to be
you?
here.
I know it's always great to see you. Always, always. How have things been going for you at Nanaimo Brain Injury Society these days?
Yeah, we've been really busy,
Yep.
very, very full. Of course, everyone has been is coming out of the major impacts of COVID, but we're feeling those ripple effects.
Yeah, for sure.
In the last year, during COVID, we faced a lot of challenges in terms of sustaining the organization, making sure that our clients and staff and volunteers were all following public health safety, and then meeting the needs of our clients amidst all that. So
Yeah.
it's been very, very full, but there's been some really exciting things that we've been able to do in terms of pivoting to be able to better meet our clients' needs, looking at the sustainability and the regeneration of our organization. So there's been a lot of movement and shaking over here at
Well,
the Brain Injury Society.
I love the movement and shaking part of it. And certainly in community, I'm still very involved in hearing how things are going and what's happening within community itself. And you come up so regularly as being a leader of such an incredible amount of work that you do within community to support people with brain injury and also from an educational perspective.
Mhm.
You know,
Thank you.
I
That's
know
very,
that a
very
lot.
kind.
Oh, you're very welcome. You know, I know that there's been a lot of pivoting happening, and certainly the rules have lightened up a little bit in the last little while. But, you know, during that 2-year process, because I think it's been at least 2 years since I've last spoken to you, it was the beginning, I think, of COVID when the last
Mhm.
time we had a conversation. What did you really notice from the perspective of the people that were receiving your services? Like how were they managing during such a difficult time?
I think one of the biggest impacts that we saw were certainly the negative impact on mental health.
Yeah,
And I'm sure that's across the board for everyone. But
absolutely.
when we think about populations that have greater health risks and are experience greater impact from the pandemic, certainly the brain injury community falls under that
Yeah,
population that was already experiencing high levels of social isolation
indeed.
due to living with brain injury, living with a disability, having limited income, facing barriers to transportation, barriers to communication. So when someone is already living with those barriers to social inclusion, then things shut down. We saw certainly people face challenges with accessing services, not only when services were closed down or even moved online. Many people have low digital literacy. So
Yes.
that's a huge, huge learning curve
Hmm.
when all of a sudden you're supposed to be accessing services online, if at all. So the negative impacts were certainly felt within the brain injury community. Fatigue went up
Yes.
for folks, and I
Yes.
think that we can all feel that. But with brain injury, we often say that your battery never gets fully charged. Even
Yeah.
if you're managing your energy, you're managing the things that you're doing, that even after all those things, you might be able to charge your batteries to 75%.
Yes. Yes.
So fatigue related to processing constantly changing and complex information. The stress, of course, the stress related to all the changes that were happening. We saw heightened levels of anxiety
Yeah.
related to and fear
Yeah.
around what's safe, what's not safe, navigating misinformation and disinformation, and where are we getting our information from, and what can we trust. So folks
Yes.
were brain injury survivors and families were certainly navigating that, and of course the frustration. Activities were canceled. A lot of the routine was gone. And that really impacts the brain injury community. And programs were closed and some disappeared. Some never
Yes,
came back.
indeed. Some, and that's what I was curious about. What about the programs that never did come back? And
Yeah.
did you see an increase of calls because of that complexity that was happening within community, or was it
Yeah.
fairly level all the way through?
No, well, it was
No.
quiet at the beginning,
Sure,
and
sure.
then we saw about a 50% increase in the clients that we saw. We had a huge increase in calls, not only from caregivers who then also felt that extra burden and pressure with all these lack of services and looking for services for their loved ones and navigating that complexity. But we also saw an increase in calls from other community services and other providers who were also struggling.
Yes.
And everybody was forced to pivot. So we certainly saw a huge jump in the demand for our services, and that pressure or that requirement to do what we could in a crisis situation, without a lot of support, because a lot of organizations are pivoting and they're implementing safety operations at the office and adapting physical spaces and looking at deciphering the guidelines and implementing internal policies to reduce risk. And all of a sudden you're hit with everything all at once.
Yes.
But I must say that I really want to say kudos to all my fellow community organizations, certainly, who were small and or just nimble enough.
Yeah. And I think the nimbility of it
provide
all
those
was really a big part of it, because I did see where some agencies as well closed their doors permanently. They were never able to reopen again. Those that were able to get their way through it really had to do a tremendous amount of pivoting in order to support it and to find additional funding models that they may not have otherwise found, except for the fact that we were in a pandemic, which I think was in some cases helpful, but in other ways it couldn't have been easy.
Yeah.
From the perspective, go
sorry,
ahead.
just to jump off on that, what we are now seeing is, because some of those agencies did not survive,
Yes, yes.
we are now seeing the impact on our agency, on the increased demand
Yes.
for those services that are no longer provided by these other agencies, especially around housing.
Yes, yes.
The increase of folks that need support around navigating housing services, finding housing, applying for housing, doing all of the applying for our persons with disabilities applications, all those things, because these other agencies are no longer in the community. That is now, now we're seeing those folks as well.
Yeah. So the capacity.
Wow, that is a
growing.
huge gap that is now in our community,
Yes.
that we are now seeing that increased demand on our doorstep.
Did you notice that the community resources that you were working with, were they still very much, because in the nonprofit sector, very often these nonprofit agencies will work in silos, right? There's not necessarily that, the collaboration piece that goes, particularly as funding is related. Did you see that those silos really start to come down, or did they remain, but you worked your way through it and navigated through them?
I saw incredible collaboration between organizations. Certainly when the pandemic first hit, and a lot of the larger the government offices all shut down, it was really the grassroots, the organizations and peer-led organizations, volunteer-led organizations that stepped up and did whatever needed to be done to be able to not only deal with the pandemic, but support those basic needs, because we saw food insecurity.
Yes.
Right. We saw housing or financial insecurity, health insecurity.
Yes.
So I saw incredible resiliency within organizations and willingness to do whatever we needed to do. So the Brain Injury Society at that time, we were in a different location. We had a kitchen. And so an organization needed a kitchen in order to make sandwiches and hand them out on the streets. And we're like, okay, so let's work with VIHA, let's work with this organization. because I just said, what do people need right now?
Exactly.
And the most vulnerable, and
Yeah.
and they need those basic needs met.
And what I noticed as well in compliment to what you're saying was the food insecurity piece really opened the door to understanding what was happening for people that were already struggling, were already displaced. And then when their transportation fell through, when they weren't able to go out and see community, suddenly those food issues became even more magnified. So how did you, I heard through part of the conversation, you said that you moved. So did you move into a place with a kitchen, or did you move, did you have a kitchen and move out of a place with a kitchen?
Yeah. So, and I can't remember what, when we had our last conversation, but
yeah.
we were living in a community services building owned by the city.
Yes.
And so when the pandemic hit, that building was taken over for greater shelter space, because the shelters could no longer operate at the capacity that they were doing previously because of this spacing issue and needing to create physical distancing. So the building that we were in was taken over for shelter. So we had to find a new space.
Wow.
So in the middle of the pandemic, we were very fortunate to be able to find a space that was, we needed accessible washrooms, we needed level entrance, we needed all these things. And we found a fantastic building owners, landlords who were willing to work with us to renovate the space, to do what needed to be done. They're just, oh my gosh, I love our landlords. Like, it's not often that you can say that.
That's so true.
I love our landlords. I love our building. We are now, we have a storefront. We are, we're on a street where we get a lot of exposure so people can know that we're here and access these services. So yeah, moving in the middle of a pandemic.
Oh my gosh, that must have been quite the exciting time for you.
Fun.
When you get it during those days, for sure. Now that you're settled in, and I love the idea that you have a storefront for greater accessibility, are you seeing the same kind of challenges as people are walking through the door now, or has it leveled off and it's more conducive to what your program was in the first place, which was more catered towards those with persons with disability, and in particular with brain injury?
So what we saw, kind of at the we're still seeing a greater demand on our services from previous years. And now what we're seeing is folks really wanting to connect in terms of social programming, recreation. We've done surveys of our clients, and they want to get back to some sort of routine, meaningful activity, building those relationships, being able to build skills, to build relationships, build community, and build resilience. We're certainly not out of the pandemic. We're
not at all
running programs, and still, like, COVID is around, and so we have to manage that. But we are seeing people show up and really want to have that connection. So that's something that we are certainly responding to, and being like,
wonderful.
Okay, so how do we do that in a safe way? How do we acknowledge that people have different comfort levels? Some people, so we're doing a mix of, we pivoted just last week. We had a program that was going to be here in house and in our big program room, and we thought, let's take it outside. The weather's good. Let's just take it outside. So we were very quick to secure the pavilion out at Maffeo Sutton Park for Qigong in the park. And the city was wonderful. Everyone moved really quickly so that we could do that, because like I said, COVID is still around, and we want to make sure that everybody's healthy and safe and still able to participate. So
indeed.
Yeah.
So let's talk about brain injury as itself, because, in all fairness, I think that community as itself, it's one thing if you break a foot, it's one thing if you break a knee, or you're wearing a cast, or you're walking with a cane. There's a visible conversation that happens with most disabilities.
Mhm.
But with brain injury, that isn't the case. So, how are people able to support people with brain injury, pardon me, better? I'm thinking agency and injury in the same breath.
Mhm.
But how are we able to give agency to people in a better way that
Mhm.
have brain injury?
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I think there's just having an understanding that the person who is presenting in front of you, you don't know what that story is behind that person unless we listen, unless we ask, unless we are aware in that moment, that
Yeah.
we're able to kind of turn up our internal, like our emotional regulation. If someone is reacting in a way that is bringing up our stuff, our triggers, our feelings of,
Mhm.
not feeling safe, like what is it how are we able to respond in a way that uh, helps to regulate both of us, because the
Mhm.
brain is filtering in so much of that information,
Sure.
and when the brain isn't working as efficiently as it could because it's having to reroute the information because of the injury, then that's very exhausting.
Yeah.
You see something, and it's just the nature of our brain and development. We go to judgment very quickly.
Mm.
See that spectrum of the human expression and condition, and taking a trauma-informed approach to understanding, like, what we're seeing in front of us is often an expression of trauma, of
Yeah.
pain, of injury, of also healing and love and all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
So in terms of answering your question, like, how do we better support or live with or engage with folks with invisible disabilities, including brain injury, it's being able to be present with what is, and admit that we don't have the whole story.
Yeah.
We just don't
Yeah.
know. Like this person who is in front of me, there's a story there, and I may assume a lot of things, but without hearing, understanding, listening to that person and what's going on for them, I just don't know.
Yeah. You're
So that
absolutely right.
it takes the disability isn't the problem. It's the structures and the reactions and the community that
Yeah.
is creating a lot of barriers for folks to be able to be here and
Yeah.
to be well and to access the support they need to live a good life.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that it's so very natural for people to roll into that judgment piece, even if they don't intend to, if they intend to be present with someone. I had a phone call the other day that came in through the Nanaimo Senior Services Network. And it was an elderly woman who had explained to me that she had a brain injury right from the very beginning of the conversation. And I found that in her case, I could hear on the phone, she was so upset and she was so frustrated. And it was mostly because no one would take the time to be patient enough to listen. And I think that, and to have the expectation that when she was given instruction, that she would be able to, immediately process it and bing, bang, bong,
Mhm.
Bob's your uncle.
Right.
It was really a reminder to be present in conversation with someone and to be able to help to there's a difference between supporting somebody and enabling somebody, but when it comes to brain injury, enabling isn't part of the conversation in this particular dynamic.
Mhm.
It's they're not necessarily capable of taking the information. So how would you suggest would be a really good way to for everyone and for all of us to reach to someone, but particularly when they self-identified as having a brain injury?
Mhm. I think, yeah, it's kind of being real, you know,
Yeah.
because also having someone go into their traumatic story and tell their story as part of that, getting hooked into that loop is also not helpful sometimes.
No,
Right?
absolutely. So
So
true.
it can be part, and it's not a judgment, it's not a moral judgment of like, oh, here they go again telling the story. It's again a function of the organ of the brain where there can be what's called perseveration, which means you get on this loop and you kind of just keep going in this cycle. And it can be, it can sometimes not be helpful for folks.
Yeah.
So if it's helpful, like what is it we're meant to do right here at
Yes.
this point in time? And then, and to feel okay with saying like, all right, I hear, like I really understand, and what I'm hearing and what I'm feeling in my body is some of the frustration that you might be feeling. Is that like I hear that you haven't been heard. Is that
Yes.
a thing
Yeah.
for you? And but is it time for that big story right now? Because, for example, if someone comes through the door and they're telling me their big story, I'm not the client services person, and they're going to have to tell that story again to another person, which is exhausting.
Exactly.
So it's helpful
Exactly.
for me to say who I am,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm able to do,
Mm-hmm.
where we're going to go in these next, 5 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
And is that okay?
Yeah.
Because that's what we're able to do in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay to press pause. It's okay to be here and to be in this together. So it's not necessarily like I'm the service provider and I have all the answers and you're the
Yeah.
person who's
Yeah.
coming to get service, and therefore you're in you're on the other side of things. Like, we're here. I understand that there is absolute, like, we can talk about power and privilege, and we can talk about all those dynamics in this relationship, but being able to say, okay, we're here together. And if the person has that awareness of their brain injury and what they need, and they're able to articulate that, that is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Sometimes that awareness isn't in there. It's like sometimes we don't know what we need. So being able to sit and slow down and pause and be like, okay, let's just hold on here, because both of our brains are going to be working on this.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Very true.
Can we just get real for a second, and just, that's what I find helpful for me.
Yeah. No, that's really
Because
good advice, because
it can get, sometimes having someone tell their big story isn't the most compassionate thing to happen.
no, I
because
agree.
then it's out, and now you're holding it and you're like,
Yeah.
now it's a big story that we're not able to
Process.
process,
Yeah.
or so there's times and places and timing, and we don't necessarily know what the right thing at the right time is. It's kind of a spontaneous living thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something there for me, that when I'm in a position where someone's coming in and asking for support, it's kind of clarifying what's needed in this moment. What's my role? What's your role? Where are we going to go in this next 5? Let's kind of map it out, put the cards on the table, and see where we go from here. Because everybody with a brain injury is unique.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just like all of us as human beings are unique.
Absolutely. It's a different, you have a concussion here, and you have a concussion, you have 3 people with concussions. They can all have different experiences and different needs. And so, yeah, I don't know if that was helpful, but it's kind of like
absolutely perfect.
Taking a breath and being like, right. Not always easy, because my stuff comes up and I get triggered and I'm like, right, I want to my conditioning is like, oh, I want to fix everything and I want to help, and I want to like,
Yes.
it's not helpful sometimes. Most of the time, it's not helpful to be like,
Well, and in the particular event that happened in my case, and I know that this happens for a while, is when we're pressed for time, when we're in the hurry, we're trying to be patient. We're good people with good hearts. We have, the capacity to stop and listen and breathe and do all of those things. But sometimes the timing just they don't work well, and you find yourself I found myself at the end of the day, frankly, being somewhat impatient, and that's not my way. I'm usually very, very patient, but I found, it was one of those calls, and the repetitiveness of the story made it very difficult for me to get to the root to be able to support. And so that I think what you said is really, really true. We have to take each individual, trauma informed wherever we can be, patient, breath, and put the cards on the table as real as possible to say, listen, I really do want to help you, but maybe right at the moment I'll need to call you back, or I'll need to do something else in order for the frustration not to actually have come up, for sure.
Yeah, and frustration arises, anger arises. You can't expect, and justifiably, when someone's hitting wall after wall, we know that services are short-term or non-existent, or there's long wait lists. Like, it's very frustrating when you're in that position trying to get help, and it's just you're just facing the wilderness and trying to navigate that, or facing so many barriers. And so there is something there to understand, where it's like, we're not always polite. We're not, when we're asking for things and feeling that frustration, we're all,
that
we're
happens
all jerks at some point or another, and that's
right. And that happens whether you're with somebody who has a brain injury or has not got a brain injury. So that's not really the issue. I'm just going to take a moment to do a quick station identification, because I do want people to be able to reach out to you, to contact you for services, and know how to do that. So this is a perfect time for our guests to go grab yourself a piece of paper and a pen. Let's make sure that you've got the time, so you'll be able to write down our information as soon as you can. But if you just tuned in, you're listening to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM right here in beautiful downtown Nanaimo. We're really glad that you tuned in today. Listen, I also want to remind you about something that's coming up on September the 17th. That's Shine 2022 at the Convention Center. We're trying to raise $100,000 for mental health and addictions staying right here in this beautiful city of Nanaimo. So please make sure that you go get your ticket, or talk to me about how you can contribute your time to such an incredible, wonderful cause. In the meanwhile, we're going to continue our conversation with Kix Citton. I hope I got it right this time.
Yeah, you got it right.
I'm doing my best. I for whatever reason, I've known you for years now, and I never get your last name right. It's the Italian side of it. I can see my hands moving, but it doesn't come out of my mouth properly at the end of the day. So
it sounded good. You did great.
That's good. And she's with the Nanaimo Brain Injury Society. So listen, I have another question for you. There's a couple of things that I know, speaking of fundraisers, that you do a lot of fundraisers for, of course, the program. And I'm curious, the last time you were doing one, you were jumping off a bridge, basically on a bungee jump.
Yeah.
And I just saw you're about to do it again. Let's tell the audience what you have in your mind. What are you thinking?
Well, we launched Toss the Boss last year in partnership with Victoria Brain Injury Society and Wild Play Nanaimo. We brought out about 40 teams last year who fundraised around $87,000 in one day.
Fantastic.
And so teams nominate their boss. So these can be employees that nominate their boss, and then raise a minimum of $500 to see their boss bungee jump.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it was incredible. It felt like a festival atmosphere. We were out at Wild Play all day. We had teams from accounting firms and real estate. We had fantastic participation from all across the island, small businesses, large businesses, universities, everybody was very eager to
Yeah.
pitch
Yeah,
their
to
boss
throw you
off the
overboard.
bungee bridge. And it's a really incredible show of leadership to
Yes.
see somebody stand in that kind of vulnerability at the platform on top of the bridge and facing 150 feet of nothing. I don't care if you've got a bungee cord
Wow.
attached to your ankles. That thing doesn't kick in until you reach the bottom. So it's a free fall.
Oh my
But it was
God.
just so incredible to watch that role modeling of courage and vulnerability and literally taking one for the team.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
the team
absolutely.
did the work of the fundraising to support brain injury survivors, and the boss laid it out on the line. And you would just
Wow.
see, especially for the jumpers who are having a difficult time.
Yeah.
It is not easy to stand on that platform and stare into abyss. And
So were you scared the first time you did it?
oh,
Like,
I
tell
was,
us a
you know,
little
I
bit
was
about how
up on
you.
the bridge. I was having a good time. There's music. There's all this. It's like a party up there. Like, yeah, this is great. I figured, you know, if I'm gonna go, I'm gonna wear a unicorn onesie.
Yeah,
Nothing bad can happen to you when you're wearing a unicorn onesie.
that's right.
It's
That's
magic.
right.
So I was wearing my unicorn onesie. I was having a good time. I was raring to go. And they're strapping your ankles in. They're making the jump masters. Oh my God. Like the bridge crew were just phenomenal, cracking jokes about it being their first day on the job. And
Wow.
so funny, you know, doing everything they can to help you relax. So we were good. We're having a good time. And then they strap your ankles together with like what looks like an old towel and some elastic bands. And then you kind of like shuffle out to the edge of the platform. And that's where things get real.
Wow.
So standing on the platform now with everybody watching, and there is nothing except the beautiful Nanaimo River below you. And so I was there with Steve, the jump master, and he's explaining it to you. He's like, all you got to do is lean forward, watch that tree, just watch it all the way down. All you got to do is just lean forward. And I'm like, oh God, there's such biological imperative right now to not hurl myself into the abyss.
Yes, yes.
There's nothing about this that says yes.
Yeah.
So he just like put your hands above your head, so you've got like a little bit more weight above you. So that's gonna. And then I was like, I need help. And he just very gently leaned me forward. He didn't push, just leans forward until gravity takes over, and then he lets go.
Wow.
And then you're falling, and there's no turning back.
No, because you're falling. Yeah, no kidding. You're falling. You're free falling.
So it's not painful at all. It's terrifying. For me, some folks were incredible. We had these beautiful like swan dives off of the bridge. Wow. We had one guy in a full green lycra suit who jumped not only from the platform, he jumped from the other side of the bridge, so he could get a more like fulsome swing. Wow. So some people were just like, this was the best thing I've ever done, so freeing. And some bosses were like, I will never, ever do that again. So,
however, you're not one of them.
This is the thing, Kathy, is that we ask brain injury survivors and families to do hard things every day.
Yes.
We ask them to navigate systems that are very difficult to navigate on at the best of times. Mm-hmm. We ask them to have patience. We ask them to wait. We ask them to overcome incredible challenges, from rehab to navigating the phone systems, or learning how to make coffee again, or learning how to walk again. We ask brain injury survivors to do hard things every day. Yeah. And so getting up on that bridge is a little bit of a symbol of saying, you know what, we're with you. We're going to raise some money, and we're going to ask we're going to ask our bosses to do something hard, because we can do hard things and we can do them as a community. So we had such a good time last year. We're doing it again. I've got a different onesie this year. I figure, you know, as long as it has wings, I'm good. So I've got a dragon this year, dragon onesie with wings. I will be on the bridge. Once again, we've got DJ Allgood, who's going to be DJing up on top of the bridge. We've got food trucks. We've got drone footage of jumpers. We've got already, so it's September 23rd. We've got 16 teams already signed up, really from like small little organizations to big like provincial organizations. Like it is such a good time, and it's such incredible team building to get out there with your team, you know, do a high ropes course and then pitch your boss off a bridge. Just
fantastic. So I have to ask you, when he let go, do you know how I found for myself, I'm sorry, I'm kind of grumbling all over the place, but several years ago, I was in a very terrible car accident, and everything was slow motion, right? It was slow motion, because the body doesn't feel trauma, and well, it feels trauma, but it doesn't, it's sort of, when it feels like it's in that panic mode, that trauma mode, it slows right down as if you're able to witness it. When you went over the other side, did it feel like slow motion, or was it a quick plummet? Boom, here we go.
No, it was slow motion, slow, terrifying, nauseating, terrible. And then when I got to the bottom, which is very, very gentle, like I said, is not painful at all.
No.
When you get to the bottom, then there's like the bouncing back up.
Yes.
And then you get to fall again. Not from the same height, but maybe halfway. And so you're doing it again. So there's a few of these, like there's the big one, and then there's like, and there's like some bouncing and spinning. So, you know, my like middle-aged, you know, woman, like equilibrium is not great at the best of times. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm either gonna scream or I'm gonna throw up.
Yeah. One or the other, for sure.
So I was just, you know, maybe people thought I was screaming like woohoo, but I was not. Like, no, that was
terrorizing, cryptic
terror. But I figured I didn't die.
No, you didn't.
Nobody died.
Thanks be to God.
We all had an incredible team. The adrenaline rush is like.
So is it only the boss that goes to the end, or do any of your team members, your staff members, also jump?
Yeah, you can nominate anyone who you can nominate boss for the day. Yeah. And the boss, if they're not willing, they can also nominate a proxy or voluntold somebody. Your turn. So bosses can either jump themselves, they can have someone jump in their place, or they can buy their way out. So they can also support the fundraiser by matching the funds raised, which some bosses did, which is fantastic.
Of course. Not everybody can do it.
Everybody can do it. Yeah, we've got a few VIU profs. We're encouraging people to toss their prof as well. We've looked at different schools. People can toss their managers, toss whoever you'd like. But you get to be boss for the day.
Yeah. So the sky's the limit on you. You can, push over the edge and let them fly for a moment. Yeah. How wonderful. So how do people get involved? Or how do people donate? How do people get involved with the fundraiser?
Yeah, so it's really easy. Okay. It's tosstheboss.ca.
Toss the boss.
All one word, tosstheboss.ca. You can go on there, register, nominate to toss the boss. You can also, there are teams listed there. You can donate directly to the teams. It's really super easy. If people have any problems whatsoever, there's contact information there that will help you register your team, get your page set up, and then you're just off and running.
Sounds
Yeah.
fantastic. I
Yeah.
love it. I love that you're
Yeah.
wearing a dragon with wings. Why the dragon this year? You went with unicorn last year.
Yeah.
Dragon is a little more serious than the unicorn. What's the connection there?
Yeah. Well, my in Chinese astrology, my
Mhm.
animal, I'm a dragon.
Okay, that
So
makes sense.
again, so just having that bit of courage. Again, anything with wings, I think is helpful. And we encourage people to dress up. So last year, people were wearing
Yeah.
tutus, they were wearing wings. They had, yeah, it was so fun. Yeah, we had a lot of fun out there, and the teams were just, yeah, just really cheering each other on. And like I said, it's like a festival atmosphere. Teams come out, they can do some team building out at Wild Play. Wild Play is incredible.
You know,
What
I've never been to Wild. I've been to lots of places, but I've never been to Wild. Like
Kathy.
in Mexico,
Okay.
I've done the strips where, you know, I've gone along, and, you know, in
Yeah.
other parts of the world, I've done that, but I've never been to Wild Play.
You know what? Definitely, if you can, come out on the 23rd.
Oh, I intend to. Yeah.
Come out
We're
to
making
cheer
that
people
happen.
on. And Wild Play is so beautiful. It's incredible. It's incredible forest out along the Nanaimo River. And they
Gorgeous.
have all sorts of activities out there. They've got incredible adventure courses, all different levels. So again, we had businesses come out, bring a
Yeah.
team to do some of the team building stuff, and then make a day out of it. So we all need that, right? We all
Yeah, I
post,
agree.
or if we can call this post pandemic,
We do.
having the
Yeah.
opportunity to be outside, to be with your coworkers outside of the office, see each other in a
Sure.
different light, get a
Yes.
chance to laugh, get a chance to play together. That really builds incredible trust. And what we
Absolutely.
saw, you know, especially over these last 2 years, that teams that are able to trust each other are able to move and pivot and change quickly. You know, Stephen Covey says that change moves at the speed of trust.
Yes.
So we know that we need to trust each other more than ever. And that takes time, that takes intention. And so, you know, Toss the Boss is about raising funds, raising desperately needed funds to support brain injury survivors with services in Victoria and Nanaimo. But it's also about celebrating courage, celebrating vulnerability, celebrating trust and relationships, and all the things that we see in the brain injury community.
Yeah,
And
for
now,
sure.
like, opening that up and inviting everyone to come in and experience that for the day out at Wild Play.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm pretty excited about trying it, or I'm not going to jump over, but I'm definitely going to come and watch you go over. It'll be
Please do.
calendarized right away so that happens. So that's on September the 23rd. What time does it
Yeah.
start?
Yeah, so the first jumpers go at 10,
Okay.
and there'll be teams jumping all day. Again, we're going to have the brilliant DJ Allgood, incredible, you know, award-winning DJ. He's going to be up on the top of the bridge, just creating an incredible party atmosphere. And we've got, like I said, we've got food trucks. We'll have information out there about brain injury. We'll have the teams. People are dressing up. We're really, really excited. Wild Play is a phenomenal venue. The people, Wild Play staff are all incredible. And it's wonderful to be able to partner on this kind of big event with Victoria Brain Injury Society. So these are our two organizations that, again, are building trust with each other to do something bigger.
Yeah. I do love that it's the idea of Victoria as well, and the way that you guys can collaborate within each other at the same time. So September the 23rd, 10 o'clock, I'll make sure that that's also, if you do like and subscribe us on our YouTube station, you will find all this fabulous information. But in the meantime, make sure you've just written it down. Kix, how do people reach out to you? How do they find you on website, on your office? Like, how do people connect with you?
Yeah, so our website is NBIS.ca, so Nanaimo Brain Injury Society, NBIS.ca. All of our programs are up there. We just we worked on, through the pandemic, we worked on a new website. So really making sure that our website is clear, all our content, all our new programs. We've got some really exciting new programs for folks that is on our website, or you can click directly to book appointments. We've got our referral forms there.
Fantastic.
And certainly people can call us at the phone number that's listed there on the web, but it's for anybody, if you've got your pen and paper, it's 250-753-5600.
753-5600.
That's right. Not everybody, wants to be on a
Not,
computer all the time, so please give us a call.
yeah, no, I think that's really important.
Yeah, we've been in the community for over 30 years, started by families to support and access and develop services for their loved ones with brain injuries. So we continue to advocate for brain injury supports. 1 in 20 people in our community are impacted by brain injury. Yeah. And brain injury can happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime. So that's
actually, that's what I was going to ask you. There's no age range for this, is there? I mean, a brain injury can happen as early as, a child, very early in childhood, or as late as a senior going through whatever, age group they are in their 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
I know that the demographics, and I don't want to go too deeply into a rabbit hole, but one of the things that I was inspired by you several years ago was you were doing a seminar that discussed women and brain injury as the result of domestic violence. And I'm kind of bringing us back to the beginning of the hour when we were talking about COVID, because I was curious if you happen to see more of an uptick in that area over the last few years. Particularly as it relates to COVID and brain injury happening in that way, or are they fairly stable in numbers?
Well, we know that throughout the pandemic, people sometimes home wasn't safe. Home isn't safe for people. Yeah. And so when we think about the number of women that experience intimate partner violence, it's huge. And then the nature of the trauma or the assault when it comes to the nature of the injuries, that the head, neck, and face are the most common sites of injury in victims of intimate partner violence. So such assaults can and often do result in brain injury. Yeah. So it's a silent epidemic. And when we think about the complexity and the trauma piled on top of trauma when it comes to intimate partner violence and brain injury, and again, it's mostly women who are on one side are the victims of intimate partner violence, but on the other side, the perpetrators, there's very high incidence of brain injury. Yes. In the people who are causing harm. Yes. So brain injuries on both sides of the equation. But when we're asking people to keep themselves safe and keep their kids safe in a very unsafe and unpredictable environment, and they're doing that with a brain injury, it's an impossible situation. Yeah. And so there's a lot of good work that's being done right now to highlight the connection between intimate partner violence, to make sure that both on the victim services or transition houses on that side, that people are aware of the possibility of brain injury when they're seeing people come through the doors. And then concurrently on our side, on the brain injury side, that when someone presents and they may have experienced their brain injury through an assault, they may be experiencing an unsafe home where they're experiencing intimate partner violence, that we are learning and training and understanding what it means to best support that person, because it's a very different situation when you're talking with someone who received a brain injury through a mountain biking accident. Exactly. That there isn't the stigma or necessarily the shame or the strategies. They're not the same. But when we're working with folks who are experiencing intimate partner violence, there's all sorts of questions The complexity is huge, to screen or to not screen, to what are the barriers or the facilitators, or what are the factors here that we want to take into account. And that's one area where there's huge partnership between folks who are working in the side of the transition houses and the victim support services from the RCMP, that side, and the brain injury side, so that both sides can come together and best support people who are experiencing just really terrible and impossible situations, and very complex situations.
Indeed, indeed. Well, I'm glad that you shared that with us. I think it's very important that we recognize that there are services available for people should they find themselves in intimate partner violence, and to reach out in as safest way as you possibly can, to reach out to get the support that you need. There are people that are listening, and you matter. So please do call.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is where we work with our community partners.
Exactly.
So that we get people connected not only to services that are in-house, but we make sure that we tap into the strength and the resilience and the support that's in our community. Indeed. And that's something that our client staff, our direct client staff here are really skilled at, that they are tapped into an incredible network of who's who in the zoo. Because really navigating that, and that's what we call our client services, the navigator program.
Wow,
because when you are lost in the wilderness, nobody plans on getting a brain injury, all of a sudden your world is upside down.
Indeed.
It's helpful to have someone who's able to walk beside you, and that's what we do with folks. We walk with them throughout this journey. There's no time limits. People can, may get their needs met here within the 15-minute conversation, or it may be longer. It may be months of case management and working with folks, and they can come in and out. We've seen folks connected with the Brain Injury Society for over 20 years.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Come in and out. They volunteer. We've learned about their kids, growing up.
Yes.
And all these things. So the brain injury community is woven into all aspects of civic life and life here in Nanaimo. So we're really fortunate to be able to still be here after 30 years.
Well, I'm glad you're still here, because I know of a lot of people that have relied on your services and your supports over the years. And, it's just really great to know that you're here. We only have a minute left of the program. Unfortunately, it's gone by so very, very quickly. It's always a privilege to talk with you, Kix. I love having you on the program. So I've got, of course, my last question of our conversation today is going to be your life lesson, your wisdom that you want to share and imbibe to the community. But last time, before we go into that, would you mind sharing your information one more time?
Yeah, so please come and see our website. It's www.nbis.ca. I do want to let people know that we've launched a new cognitive rehab program called Access. That just launched, and that is really something that we're so excited to bring to Vancouver Island. Where it's the first of its kind on Vancouver Island, where we are leveraging the brain's amazing ability to change itself. Wow. And so we have folks who've been in the program now for 2 months. It's an intensive program, but they are already seeing those neuroplastic changes. And wow. We had one woman, she's like, I didn't really notice it, but my family is telling me that there are changes. That wow. I'm able to find words faster, that I'm wittier, that I'm not so tired. So we are already seeing after 2 months of this intensive cognitive rehab program that people's brains are changing.
That's incredible.
And their functionality in their lives is changing and improving. Folks who first started at the very beginning, they couldn't even be in the exercises for the full length, and now they're just skating through. They're going all the way through of 3 hours of intensive rehab, and their capacity of their brains to process this information. Not only is the functionality improving, it's the efficiency. So they're not as tired. You know, at the beginning, they'd come out of their rehab room and just be like, oh my God, my brain is on fire.
Yeah.
Now they're coming out and we're like, whew, all right, that was tough, but we did it. I'm like, whoa.
That's incredible.
Wow, that
Wow.
is significant change in functionality and improvement of quality of life.
All the better
So
for the
we're really
improvement.
excited
Yeah.
about the promise of neuroplasticity and being able to leverage that and provide that support here in Nanaimo.
Well,
So
I'm
that's on
very
our website. Please go to our website and check out Access along with all our other programs on NBIS.ca.
fantastic. I'm so excited that you have this new program. It sounds incredible. So we have like just seconds left. We don't have too long. Curious, what's your takeaway? What would you like to leave and imbibe on our community?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you know, I really think that whatever the problem, whatever the issue, community is the answer.
Yes.
It's us, right? We're just here doing some stuff and, you know, on here and on our way out the door, right? We're only here for a small amount of time. And to really, what's come up for me lately is to recognize the untreated, undiagnosed pain that is expressing for folks, and to take a moment to understand how that is, you know, what we're seeing is often an expression of pain, fear, sadness, insecurity, that behavior that feels unsafe. It often is a response to that internal trauma. So yeah, I look at that and I really feel tender towards all of us in these ever changing, ever challenging times, as well as having the opportunity just to be a goofball.
Yes.
Right? And I know you're good at that, Kathy. I know you like to laugh and play and have a good time. So that's the paradox, right? It's like we're beautiful and we're jerks and we're goofballs and we're serious and we're incredibly talented, and then we're, you know, like we're you know, have no clue. This is the spectrum of this life, and so here we are.
And so here we are. Well, I have to say, Kix, that's probably the best advice I have heard, and I don't even know how long, because it is really true. We're such a wonderful rainbow of all kinds of incredible components of ourselves. And I think it's just really important that you put on a dragon suit and stick your wings on and flutter away. And what the hey, jump over and go full on and enjoy yourself in the process. Thanks so much for being my guest today. It's such a privilege to have you.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for providing this program. I know your interviews are always just so full of insights and wisdom, and you're such a great host. So thank you very much.
Very kind of you to say. Thanks so much. That does it for us on this episode of Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. We really do hope that you will go back and subscribe to it if you're watching us on YouTube. And also please check us out on Shaw Spotlight on Shaw Cable 4. Act 3 is on that television program as well as here on CHLY 101.7 FM. So tune in next week. We'll see you on Monday. In the meantime, have a wonderful, wonderful week, everybody. Thanks again, Kix. It was great to see you, my dear. Bye for now.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye. Whoops.